You're listening to the Fierce Valley Podcast, episode 209, 10 Lessons from 10 Years in Fat Liberation. I'm your host, Vinny Wellsby, pronouns they, them. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Hello, welcome to this episode. So pleased to have you here. Hey, quick question, quick favor. I was just happened to look at my my podcast pages on Apple or whatnot, and Apple does this really annoying thing where it doesn't collect reviews. It only collects reviews from certain regions, so it doesn't put all your reviews together on a podcast. They should stop doing that. I guess it makes it an issue if it's in a different language. Anyway, whatever. My question to you is, if you enjoy the show, you appreciate the work that I do, could you go and leave me a review of the podcast on Apple? I think Apple's the only place you can do it. Because, I was looking and I was like, I need to ask people to do some reviews because I've not asked in probably a couple of years. Hence why I don't think we've got many updated reviews. And they're spread around different locations, right? So I could have 10 reviews from the US, but then if you're in Canada, you only see the Canadian reviews. Anyway, there's already great reviews, so I really appreciate it. But if you can do that, I would be so happy. And if you leave a review, if you can use my pronouns of they, them, be still my beating heart. I would so love it. The joy that I get from when people refer to me as they, them instead of she, her is just, it just really feels like you see me. It's so, so nice. And then when I see she, her, I'm like, oh, it's almost like, someone getting your name wrong or something. Anyway, thank you if you're able to do that. I appreciate you. So I realized I've been doing this work for 10 years. Can you believe it? Time flies too quickly. I'm almost dead. Well, who knows? Maybe I'm not almost dead. Maybe I'm going to die tomorrow or in the next 10 minutes. Who knows? But I thought, there's been such changes in the way I view things from 10 years ago and what I was like as a human 10 years ago. And I've learned a lot about fat liberation and anti-diet and all of that type of stuff along the way. So I thought that you might be interested in learning what my 10 lessons are. Maybe. I don't know. Is that interesting to you? I I read someone else's post, which was like 10 years after being diagnosed with, 4 years or something, 3 years after being diagnosed as autistic. And this is what I've learned. And I was like, I find that very interesting. So 10 years ago, let's say July 2014. Hang on. That's more than 10 years. That's 12 years. July 2014, that was when I first started doing online business stuff. Yeah. And then moving into fat liberation maybe a year or so later. So 10 years. We'll say 10 years. It's been more than 10 years, but you get the drift. And Vinny then, I wasn't even called Vinny. I was using my dead name. Vinny 10 plus years ago, well, let's say 15 years ago, I was deeply ashamed and a really holding shame person and felt isolated by that shame. Like I felt like no one else was feeling the same way that I was. And it was a really solitary experience. And I had this searing longing for thinness because I thought that thinness equaled all of these magical things like love, acceptance, and happiness. And, and thinness does provide you with acceptance and potentially love, potentially happiness, but not because of bias, not because thinness inherently makes you more lovable or makes you more happy or etc. Maybe experiencing less bias might make you more happy, but I just thought that thinness was the root, and I felt like I was able to do lots of things in my life. I felt like a high achiever, but I just could not get thin. And I was convinced that there was something wrong in my brain. I'd gone to a freaking hypnotist. This was one of this was the final cries of diet culture that I was in. I'd gone to a hypnotist to make me stop eating a snack that I really like. And I was so like a people pleaser that the hypnotism, I wasn't hypnotized, but I faked it. Vinny. And so, I went in the room and sat on a couch, and, she was like, oh, we're going to do this thing. You visualize walking downstairs in like 10 to 1. And then when she got to the bottom, she was like, she lifted my arm up to see if I was hypnotized. And I think I let it fall down. Or so. I was like, such a high achiever. I must achieve this therapy. And basically she was like, oh, that snack is disgusting. Oh, even the smell of it makes me sick, and just really did a number shaming me even more. And I did temporarily stop wanting the snack because I was so ashamed, and because I'd paid money to see a hypnotist. I think a couple of times I went. And so I was like, it worked. I'm hypnotized into not being a fat loser anymore. Yeah, that snack still today, some of there's ghosts of her messaging in my brain sometimes when I have that snack. And I love that snack still. And I should embrace it. That's a good point. In my therapy today, a big theme that I'm working on is being a troublemaker. Like if I'm struggling with something, with my therapist, it'd be like, okay, and why do you feel like that? And what's underneath that? And blah, 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 blah. And a lot of what underneath my fears and worries and whatever is that I'm a bad person because I'm, quote, making trouble, aka asking for my needs to be met, which I am perceiving as being a troublemaker. Anyway, so if I was ever to get a tattoo, I'd maybe get a troublemaker tattoo to reclaim that identity. Maybe fat troublemaker, maybe fat lesbian troublemaker. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. And then maybe this snack too. Maybe like a fat person eating this snack that I really like. The reason why I'm not sharing the snack is because I don't want to make anyone else listening who likes the snack feel any type of way about it. Yeah. So also like 15 years ago, I was in a long-term relationship, like 15, 10, 15, whatever, 12, 15. I was in a relationship with my boyfriend at the time, who told me he was less attracted to me because I'd gained a few pounds. And the memory is seared into my brain again, being in the Queen Elizabeth Park in Vancouver. And it was like a lake in there was frozen, and we were throwing bits of ice into the lake to break up the lake, and him confessing to me this secret of, that I'd done something wrong by having a human body. And now I'm like, I put on a few pounds. I don't think I was even fat. Maybe I was a small fat person. Maybe I was a size 16. And so I'm like, eye roll. And at the time I took that as, okay, this is it. And that was when I started my last ever diet, was after this conversation of, I'm going to do better. Now, by the way, I know that the response to that was that he needed to go to therapy to work on his issue of finding a partner less attractive because they'd put on weight. Like, how can you be with a partner long term, if you want to be with someone long term, and expect them to have the same body? It's not humanly possible. And I've made a podcast episode about that. When your partner says they don't find you attractive. So listen to that, because that's a big thing. If that interests you or not, whatever. And also in my life at the time, I was working in recruitment, corporate recruitment, which I fucking hated with a passion. The only reason that I was in recruitment was because it kind of fell into my lap. I was in recruitment for 8 years before I left. Before I was working in a call center, which I hated. And this was an ever so slightly worse, better job. Like the call center was horrific. But then the recruitment paid maybe like a little bit more and was maybe very horrific versus extremely horrific. Oh, I just hated it so much. And I would work in jobs I hated because I just thought that that's what labor was. I always saw my mum working jobs that she hated, and my dad didn't work. Now we know is because he was autistic and struggled to do that sort of thing. He also was had substance use issues with alcohol. Anyway, so I knew that what I perceived was my dad couldn't work because work was so awful, and my mum worked in jobs that you were sexually assaulted and abused and paid minimum wage. And so if you weren't, experiencing those things and you were paid a little bit more than minimum wage, and that was a good job. Anyway, so basically a lot of my life was accepting less than and hoping, but I had a hope if I could get thin, then my life would get better. And I actually went to therapy with the idea that I was going to go to therapy and fix my brain to work out what is the barrier. Why can't I get thin? Because I can do lots of other hard things, right? And I'd spent many hours and dollars, pounds to lose weight. So what's going on, right? I was like, we're going to get the psychology behind why I'm a piece of shit. Okay, next lesson is that there will always be cycles of a miracle cure and heroin chic, cycling back to maybe a little touch of body positivity, and then back into miracle cure, heroin chic. Heroin chic being the thing in the 90s with what's her name, the model Kate Moss. Which was I guess people were taking heroin, ? They were just, had very small bodies, and that was what was seen as chic. I've done an episode on, all of the fad diets and things throughout the years. Most recently, episode 185, which is Oprah leaves the Weight Watchers board after using weight loss drugs. And in it, I'm chronicling just the diets that Oprah has said, wow, this is the next revolution, game-changing drug. Starting in the 1980s with OptiFast diet, which was the best thing ever. And then in the 1990s, the diet was called the Best Life Diet, and that was, the last diet you're ever going to go on. And then into the 2000s, it was veganism that was the best new thing for Oprah. And then in the 2010s, it was Weight Watchers. And then 2024, she had that big show, which was weight loss injections, which was, it wasn't yet disclosed which ones that she was taking. And I think it was Wegovy, Ozempic. And aside from just Oprah, there has always been, wow, this is the next thing that's going to change the world, like Fen-Phen, which was a huge drug, which was basically speed. In the 90s, it killed loads of people, caused heart problems. That's the mechanism for the death, I think, from the top of my head. But prescribed en masse because it was going to cure this terrible affliction of fatness. Even more recently, there was a thing called Aspire Assist, which was this horrific thing where, trigger warning if you don't want to hear about eating disorder type behaviors, skip ahead a few minutes. Aspire Assist is where they would put a tube connected to your stomach so that after you ate, you literally put the tube into your stomach and release the valve and then put the contents into the toilet. So Aspire Assist was the name of it. Just horrific. I was watching a documentary with a guy being like, I'm so thin now, and then going with the documentary maker into the toilet and emptying this common stomach contents. It is dystopian. Or the thing that came from New Zealand. New Zealand is so not great for anti-fat stuff. But they had made the new jaw wiring thing, but instead of wiring, it was magnets, really strong magnets, and that was a few years ago. None of those last two wasn't as popular as the GLP-1s, but fen-phen was. So anyway, there's always going to be the miracle cure, right? So that's why I think a lot of fat activists, when you hear about GLP-1s and people are like shitting their pants with excitement of like, we've done it, we've cured it. You're like, have you? Or are loads of people going to die? And then they're going to take it off the market and be like, oh, oopsie, it's killed loads of fat people, LOL. Well, they were fat. So, I'm not saying that GLP-1s are going to be taken off the market, but they are this really hyped thing. And then it will calm down. And so, people who have got friends who are on GLPs and they're feeling so much pressure and being like, oh my God, everyone around me is doing this thing. I just want to remind you that it's likely going to be a fad in people's lives. And if you can hold on, if you feel like you can, and you might not be able to, or you might just want to, try GLP-1s or whatever. It's your body, you do whatever you want. But because I've been around looking at this stuff for over a decade, you just see, okay, well, let's see if I can just hang on and see what happens. And seeing, it's not sustainable to be on the drugs. People lost weight and then they put the weight back on. It wasn't a miracle cure after all. And it was the same in the 90s and 2000s with stomach amputation surgery and stomach shrinking surgery. I was a young person being like, I hope when I grow up, I really want to have that surgery, because that was the thing. And, 10, 20 years later, we're like, oh, it wasn't so great. And people are, reporting on the terrible stuff that happens afterwards. So, yeah. So if you're able to, remembering history and remembering that there's these cycles of people in a frenzy about this new thing that's going to, make fat people disappear, and people celebrating thinness aggressively, and then it might dampen down. And then something else will come along. So next lesson, number 3, anger and shaming / self-righteousness can't be my driving force, but it's an important part of the stages of fat identity. So in episode 205, we did stages of fat identity, and signs you're thriving or trapped, which is the stages that we can go through with any type of identity, starting with conformity. So that's conforming to thin ideals. Then next is dissonance. So you're like, oh, no, this is not sounding right to me. My, things are not adding up. The data is not showing what I'm thinking. Next is resistance and immersion. So that's resistance of anti-fatness diet culture and immersion in that liberation. Next is introspection, and so looking at it a little deeper. And then the final stage is integrative awareness, and so having a really robust understanding about who you are as a fat person and how you fit in with other identities of your own and alongside other people who have different identities. Yeah, and so when you're earlier in the stages, like you're at stage 2, dissonance, or you're just getting into fat liberation, you can be, not everyone, I was self-righteous. I was so self-righteous, and angry, rightly so, right? Because holy shit, I spent 30 years trying to make my body small and then realizing it was a con. and looking down on other people who hadn't got there yet. And so if someone was like, oh, I'm going to do this new diet, I'd be like, oh my God, they're so like, they don't get it. There's something wrong with them or whatever. And getting self-esteem because I'd got out of it. Me being able to get out of anti-fatness and diet culture, a lot of it is to do with privilege, right? I had the ability to go to therapy. Now I started going to free therapy because I couldn't afford to go to paid therapy, but I did then and have for the last decade gone to therapy consistently, and had time to educate myself around these topics. And not everyone has that, right? Or not everyone wants to. It's a privilege that I was, and anyone is able to unlearn this type of stuff, right? And so, and of course, people who are in this stuff, sometimes they are very privileged. But it doesn't make me necessarily a better person because I am no longer aligned and colluding with anti-fatness. And me looking down on other people to feed the delicious feeling of self-righteousness, long term is not sustainable. Because a lot of that is when we're shaming other people, we're shaming ourselves because we were at that stage at some point in our life. And we're at that stage with different things right now where we're not educated on something because we just don't know. So, being self-righteous and shaming, cannot be my driving force. And when I see myself slipping into that, then being more curious about that, what's going on, what needs are not being met for myself, and kind of, laughing about it with others, being like, oh, I was such a dickhead today. Do you know where I'm the biggest dickhead in life? Is when I'm driving. Oh, oh my God. I suddenly think that I'm the best driver in the world. Everyone is going too slow. Everyone needs to go back to driving school because they're doing it wrong. I'm doing it right though. It's so fucking, no, it's not true. Although sometimes I do think it's true. And then I get angry. People on the street, if we were on the street, I would never be like, what the fuck? Not that I'm shouting to people when I'm driving, but thinking in my head, you need to learn how to walk again, you stupid idiot, or whatever. So anyway, the car protects me and lets me be a dickhead. And by the way, like, I'm not shouting or doing road rage. I'm just, sitting there smugly deciding that I'm a better driver with no data. Yeah. Well, maybe a little bit of data that I've never, no, that's not true. I was going to say I've never been in a car crash. That is not true. I have been in a car crash like 20 years ago. Anyway. So next one, number 4, people who struggle with anti-fatness almost always have parents, caretakers, adults who shamed them as a kid or put them on a diet. I can't remember many people that I've spoken to over this last decade who hasn't said that their parents were parents or the adults in their life were a major, capital M, major influence on their dislike of their body. The stories that I've heard, jaw wide open, I can't believe the cruelty that so many of us experience as kids around our bodies. It's just, shaking my head being like, what the fuck? no wonder we're struggling with anti-fatness, diet culture, body image. How the fuck could we not be when, your mum, told you that you should never eat this, and if you do, you're never going to get a boyfriend. You're never going to get married because of, you're too big, and being sent to diet camps or Weight Watchers as young people, and just really awful things. Really awful things. So yeah. Which makes me mad, but also gives me hope that people who are bringing up kids now might not fuck up their kids as much as we were fucked up. Maybe? Question mark? Maybe they're going to be fucked up in different ways. Maybe there's a new way that we're going to be fucked up. Not we, the kids. Like a new pressure. Not that, like, the kids are definitely still being fucked up with anti-fatness and diet culture. But in 20 years, when I'm a therapist, am I going to be hearing people say, oh no, my parents had a really good relationship with their body? I've never heard that. This is from people I'm talking to, though, right? Who have body image issues, right? So it could be the data is skewed, because if their parents didn't shame them, then they're just living their life. They're not struggling with eating disorders or body image issues or all of that stuff. But anyway, the people that I'm seeing who do struggle with those things, it's very, very rare to hear them say, for them to not mention really shitty experiences with adults talking to them about their body, about their weight, about food when they were kids. Okay, number 5 lesson. People underestimate the power of media or anti-fat stuff, messaging, and relationships and boundaries. So my perception is that a lot of people feel like they can push through messaging, all of the different messaging that we get about that you're wrong, your body is wrong, you should be thin, etc. That they can be swimming in those waters, and it's not going to have an effect, or not going to have that much of an effect. And for many people, most people, I think it has a dramatic effect. If you are being bombarded from the moment, if you open your phone and you're seeing images of only straight-sized, white, non-disabled people, and then you're seeing ads for weight loss, and then you're talking to your friend and she's like, oh my God, I'm so fat, and she's not, and then you open a magazine and you see an advert for a weight loss tea that makes you shit yourself, and then you talk to your mum and your mum's like, have you gone on a diet yet? Because you are a fat piece of shit. Like, people think, from my perception, that they should be able to survive that and have a good relationship with their body. And they think that a lot of times that it's not that powerful in regards to influencing how they feel. Listen, I've been doing this work for over a decade, as we've established. And I still am so precious about what goes into my brain, because I notice that my brain is so smart, right? That it picks up these messages of, Vinny, this is how you fit in. Or, Vinny, have you seen all those bodies on that Bikini Babes dating show that you've been watching? You should look like that. My brain is doing the work out there to try and keep me safe, right? And so what I put into my brain, I have to be very cognizant of. And, not saying that I should never watch Bikini Babes on the beach dating show, because I might really enjoy it, right? It might give me joy in some ways, but also recognizing, okay, this could be influential. And also recognizing that the people around me, it's not safe for me to be around people who hate fat bodies. it's not aligned with my values. And hearing people that love me telling me that my body is wrong or what I'm eating is wrong or bad is very powerful. I don't have relationships with people who love me that do that, right? Again, that's a level of privilege and shows, where I am in regards to my social position in life. Like I live in a different country from my family, and I have a job, and I live on my own, etc. Right? So I was able to do those things, and I'd gone to therapy, right? But it took time. They're so impactful. So if you're like, is it a big deal that my mum's constantly saying that I should lose weight? It probably is a really big deal. And maybe it's not. Maybe your brain is different, and your brain is impervious to these bullets being thrown at you. But most people, what I see is when they start looking at their life and looking at those influences and start making changes, is that it has a really big impact on making them feel better. Okay, so number 6 lesson is, it's really hard for people to let go of healthism. Even, well-meaning people who really want to unlearn anti-fatness and they're working hard on it. Healthism, I feel like it's the last part of unlearning anti-fatness alongside ableism. It's like the thing that's like really sticky about anti-fatness is the healthism, ableism part. And I think that's because a couple of things is that being quote unquote attractive, people are able to see how that's more frivolous. And so attracting some skeezy Brad or Chad who says he doesn't want to fuck fat girls, it's easier to be like, I don't want to attract Brad anyway, because he's not a great person, right? But these messages about that if you eat this, then you're going to get diabetes, and if you get diabetes, you're going to die, and if you do ABC, you're going to die. That stuff is really, really tricky, because the consequences is not that just Chad's not going to fuck you, or Brad. Maybe they're brothers. You're not going to have a 3-way with Chad or Brad, and you're like, I can live with not having a 3-way with Chad and Brad, but I can't live with not being alive, right? The stakes are a lot higher, and it's a lot more acceptable to say, I want to lose weight for health versus I want to lose weight to be fuckable. So it's like big stake stuff. And so that is really, if you're feeling like, oh, why can't I quite get there? Looking at healthism and ableism could be a really powerful area for you to explore. And by the way, feeling all of this is like, it's normal. It's normal. You have a human brain, right? You don't want to, well, most people don't want to just die and be like, you know what, I'm just going to, just become really unhealthy and unattractive and my life, I'm just going to make my life bad, which is what our brain is telling us, but it's not really necessarily reality and is based in biased beliefs. Okay, so number 7. Fat celebs will disappoint us. It's always going to happen. Your new favorite fat celeb that you're like, oh my God, they are amazing. And they're like, yes, fat people, you're fucking amazing. They're probably going to disappoint you. It's so sad. I've done a couple of episodes on this for the show. Episode number 99. Did Rebel Wilson gain weight to become famous? That's the episode. Episode 99, we're on episode 200 or whatever. So 100 episodes ago, we were already talking about this. So the 100 episodes ago, it was the blurb was something like, notice how all the fat celebrities are losing weight? And that was, multiple years ago. It's still a thing. And then just a few episodes ago, number 203, New York Times Confessions of a Former Body Positive Influencer, which is, a famous fat person losing weight and saying that body positivity or fat liberation is bad because it wants you to be unhealthy, blah, 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 whatever it is. And people being upset because, oh my goodness, a fat celeb has disappointed me. it's just going to happen because many different reasons. They're humans. We're living in an anti-fat world. A lot of the times the fat celebs that people look up to, they're fat, but they're not politically fat, right? As in, when I say that, I mean, they're not like, believe that fat people should have equal access rights. And I don't think that dieting works is the way to go. And I don't think that we should erase fat people from the planet. If a fat celeb is not like, hey, I believe in fat liberation, in my mind, they're not I'm not putting trust in them that they are going to be, aligned with my values. I'll think, yeah, great. Love it that they are out there and doing great things for fat bodies, hopefully, and visibility and all that stuff. And I want fat people to be celebrated, but I'm not going to be looking to them as a source of inspiration. Maybe I might be inspired by their clothes. That's not true. But I mean, like, thought inspiration, maybe. So, yeah. And I think I mentioned in that episode, unless someone explicitly says, hey, I'm fat positive, we're going to be disappointed if they say, I've lost weight now and fuck all the fat people because they're disgusting. I used to be so greedy and horrible when I was fat. Because we know the worst anti-fat people and a lot of times are the people who were formerly fat, which is sad. Oh, I remember when I was formerly fat, I was so horrible to people because I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know why I suddenly had an American accent. Oh my God, do you know? I'd be like, oh my God, do you know that packet of crisps has like 12 calories? And so if you eat it, you're going to be so fat. Not like, me, I'm so fucking thin for the 2 months that I was thin. You're like, oh my God, you haven't exercised 17 hours a day? Not like me. I exercised until I broke my legs and then I crawled home and did some more exercises because I'm such a good thin person. And I wasn't even thin, by the way. I just wasn't fat. I was like on the borderline of, and I'd always be like to my friends, let's compare sizes. I remember saying, am I thinner than Alex? And being standing next to my friend Alex. Alex was probably like, what the fuck? And my other friend being like, no, Alex is thinner than you. And being like, what? No, look again. I'm thinner than Alex, aren't I? No, you're not thinner than Alex. Oh, devastated. I'm so devastated. Oh, I wasn't thinner than Alex. I was just hoping. That was my goal. Oh, anyway. Or being on a night out, being like, I'm not going to get a kebab, even though I'm shit-faced drunk and I'm just so controlled. Not like those greedy motherfuckers who were eating a kebab. Honestly, have the fucking kebab. All right, so number 8 lesson, unlearning anti-fatness was the beginning of unlearning so much for me. Oh, it was opening the door to Narnia. It was the gateway drug to deviance. Yes, I feel like my identity as a fat person was cloaked in so much shame. The idea of when you're at the place that if someone calls you fat, it's the absolutely most devastating thing that someone could call you. Because I was so ashamed of being fat. I would do so many things to try and hide my fatness or disguise being fat so that I was hope people would look at me and their eyeballs would malfunction and they'd be like, oh my God, look at that person over there who's like a size 2. Oh, just because I wore a black t-shirt or I didn't wear horizontal stripes. Like, oh, maybe if I do this, then they're going to have a short circuit in their brain. And there were so silly things too. I'd be like, well, if I, not logical, if I eat with a teaspoon instead of a tablespoon, it will make me look like I'm thinner because I'm taking such small amounts. and the spoon will look so dainty in my hand, and people will it'll be like magic, illusion. Oh, look at that thin person over there eating from a bowl with that tiny spoon. They're so small. But logically, it doesn't make sense. Shouldn't I be using a giant spoon? Because then it would make my hand and body look smaller in proportion. It doesn't make sense. I think the big thing there was like, I'm not greedy. I'm not greedy. I'm not so greedy that I'm going to use the appropriate size spoon. Honestly. Or I would think that wearing shoes that were larger. So I would, when I was a teenager, I'd buy shoes that were 2 sizes too large. I'd be clomping around like clown shoes, thinking, again, visual illusion, the giant feet would detract from my fat body and people would be like, whoa, magic. There's a thin person with large feet. Or not even large feet, like that's just a thin person because the shoe balanced out the body. It doesn't make sense. It probably just drew more attention to me because I was clomping around in size 12 Reebok Classics. So I'm size 12 US, so it'd be size 10 UK. I'm a size 8 UK and size 10 Canadian US. Oy. Or buying clothes in sizes that were too small, just so there might be the off chance that the label, the size label would stick out, and the off chance that the size label would stick out and someone would see it and be like, oh my God, are you wearing a size medium? I didn't know that you were a medium. Oh my God, you're so thin. And I'd be like suffocating. My circulation would be cut off, you know. I would be barely able to breathe. But what if there's the chance someone could see a label that says medium or something? And then, again, magic. They'd be like, wow, yeah, Vinny, yeah, I described them as like they're really thin. Just really thin person. What? And of course, like, you know, the thing that many do is if I did have to buy something that was actually my size, you know, cutting that label off, fucking burying it, nuclear destruction of a label that had my actual size on it because the shame. Oh. I was thinking about this the other day. We were going to like an underage disco. I'd made some new friends, and they were a lot cooler than me. And I don't know how, but I'd got some money to buy some clothes or trousers to go to the disco. And my new friends were all thin. And so we went after school one day, we went downtown to buy me trousers. And then the disco was that night. And I was so ashamed of having to buy, I think it was maybe like a size 16 or 18 at the time. I couldn't even pick up the size I needed from the rack. I would be going and picking up size 10 or whatever. These are UK sizes. And then taking them into the dressing room, standing there for a few minutes, not trying them on because I knew that they wouldn't fit. And then coming out being like, no, I didn't like it. And they were getting so mad and going into stores that didn't even have plus sizes. And they'd be like, what's wrong with this one? Just take this one. It'd be like we were there for a long time. And eventually there was, I found some pedal pushers that had stretch in them. But the band at the top was like a jean material. So the band at the top was not stretchy. And so I bought them because I could get them around my legs, but I couldn't button the top at all. And so then I bought them, and then when I went home, I managed to get back to my friend's house. I must have got scissors or something, and I tried to cut the top of the band, but I realized that if I did, I cut it half, but then I realized if I cut the whole thing, like the trousers would fall down because then there'd be nothing holding them up. And so I had them slightly cut. So I maybe got an extra centimeter, but then would button them up, and literally my body was cut in half, like a figure 8 this band, and I knew that everyone could see. I was maybe 14 at this time. I knew everyone could see there's something, what's going on? Like there's something around their waist making it's really tight. And I was I think I had a hoodie hiding it. And I remember showing them, like, the mums being like, come on then, show us your new trousers. And then going down and showing them the trousers. And they were kind of like looking at me like, something's wrong. Do we tell them that we can see that the trousers are cutting them in half? Yeah. And then I went to the disco, and I don't remember what happened at the disco. But those pedal pushers are just in my mind. I can visualize them perfectly. They were from Miss Selfridge for the people in the UK. And so they were probably mad expensive, and they didn't fit. I never wore them again, obviously, because I had trouble breathing and digesting food. But the match, I couldn't even be like, listen up. Can we go to New Look, which is a different clothes store, to buy and then pick out a size that fits me? I remember them I remember them kind of looking at the sizes that I was picking out. I remember they'd go they would look at the sizes, and I think one time I picked out a bigger size, like a size 14 or something, and I remember them noticing it and it being a negative thing. So I think there was some extra something about that. Oh, pardon me. Anyway, that was a long thing, and I bet a lot of people listening are like, same type of story. I've experienced it. So because I had so much shame around fatness, when I quote came out as fat and said, "Hey, I'm fat," I was then able to be like, what else am I believing and doing and behaving because of shame, because I don't think I deserve more? So, that boyfriend that I was with, he was the last long-term boyfriend that I had. I came out as non-binary. I came out with new pronouns, and a new name. My name, Vinny, actually that's a name that I had when I was a kid. So when I left the UK, like 17 years ago, everyone called me Vinny. And then when I came to Canada, no one would say to me, what do you like to be called? They would just call me by my legal name. And by the way, I'm in the process of legally changing my name. Ooh, it's going to take about a year, but yeah, I'm excited about it. Yeah, so then I came out as non-binary. Then I came out as queer. Then I learned that I was ADHD and autistic. And I feel like, just even questioning the fat stuff, it just makes your brain be like, but why? Why am I doing this? Why am I behaving like this? Why am I thinking this? What do I actually want? What do I like? What serves me? What is aligned with my values? And it's just so wonderful, because I feel like just a big old weirdo, which is great. Before I felt like a big old weirdo for the wrong reasons, that I was wrong. Now I'm like, I'm a big old weirdo for the right reasons, that I'm, have all these different identities, and we all have different identities, right? But that I had never had the ability to look at, because I was so busy trying to become thin, spending all my energy on shame and thinking about how shit I was versus thinking about what do I want. And I'm just really excited about this, because I'm going to because I don't know what's next. I don't know what's next, and I just know that I have so much more to unlearn. And who the fuck knows? What do you think? What the thing that I'm thinking about a lot is polyamory, and I'm like, but I just want to have one. I just want one partner. I don't feel like I'm into polyamory. And then I'm like, but I feel like a loser piece of shit because I'm not into polyamory. On the dating apps, on the lesbian dating apps, like all the cool people, I'm so funny. All the quote cool people, they're all like open relationship, polyamory, and I'm like, I feel like such a nerd because I'm that's just not me. Currently, I don't know, I don't know. And is that because I've learned like problematic ideals about ownership of people? And yes is probably the answer. And And also, it's absolutely fine to be monogamous. It's not uncool to be monogamous as well. But this is the shame that, or the shame that will come up when you're different from others, that you're like, there's something wrong with me. Yeah, I bet you lots of people will hear that I'm saying that I'm a loser because I'm not poly and be like, yeah, I feel like that too. So I don't think I'm alone in that experience. But anyway, I'm saying that is that I don't know where I will be in 10 years. Who knows? Maybe I'll be like, yeah, monogamy is good for me. Or maybe I'm like, I have 17 girlfriends. Who knows? And that's really fun. That's really fun to think about for me. Yeah. So number 9 lesson. Some people don't want to unlearn anti-fatness and are content and happy in diet culture. And trying to get them to care about these things can actually be counterproductive. So if that's people in your life, setting boundaries with them and be ready if or when they are open to this stuff. And this goes back to the identity, the stages of fat identity. At the beginning, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to tell everyone about how fucked up diet culture is and anti-fatness. And they're just going to be like, oh my God, Vinny, thank you so much for telling me that. My life is now changed. I am never going to go on another diet. I love my fat body, or I love fat people. I was so excited. And then when that didn't happen, I'm sure maybe some people did hear me say that and go, oh, that's cool. And they did. But probably many people were like, no thanks. And then I got angry because I was like, how can you keep believing this when I've just told you that you're wrong? Honestly, who loves being told that they're wrong? It's almost like, so in therapy, a lot of times you can't, so this therapy is directive and non-directive, which means that a therapist can tell you what to do or not tell you what to do. And so a directive might be appropriate in certain circumstances. Say like if you have a short therapy relationship, you're only going to have one session, and it's like, oh, I want to solve a problem and meet a goal, and so a therapist might be like, oh, so have you thought about doing ABC? Whereas non-directive is probably where most therapists lean, therapists like that you or I might go and see, maybe for longer term therapy, or the types of therapy where the client is positioned as the expert on their experience and on their body and whatnot, is more non-directive, where you're kind of letting them come to the answer on their own. Because that can be really powerful, right? When you work it out on your own, and then providing guidance, right? And it can be very disempowering when someone comes and says, okay, I know the answer to all your problems. All you need to do is read this one book, or do this one thing, or change everything that you've been thinking and doing, because I know better than you. This is going to turn off most people, unless it's a very specific set of circumstances. The very specific set of circumstances is like when someone's like searching for the information, and they're like, tell me, what is it? And then you find the book, or you find the podcast, and then they say the thing that you've been maybe contemplating, and you're like, yes, that's it. But it's kind of like you've discovered it, right? You did it on your own. You've come to the conclusion on your own, even though maybe in a book or a podcast, someone's saying, hey, this is what I did, and maybe you should do it, or whatever. So all of that to say is that, I used to be 10 years ago, really like telling people you should do this because your life will improve. Now I'm like, And no, I'm just no. If someone asks me like, well, what do you think about, or what, even if someone's like, what do you think? I'd probably be like, well, what do you think? But say if I was being interviewed on a podcast, what do you think in that situation? I'd be like, well, this is what I think. And also, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Also, this might not be the right time for you. My intro to Fat Liberation was Reagan Chastain and her blog, which was called at the time Dances with Fat. That's still the name of her blog, but she's on Substack. If I had been introduced to Reagan's blog a few months before, a year before, 5 years before, it wouldn't have had the same effect. And I would not have known reading it then or previously or whatever, might not have stuck. Maybe I'd already been exposed to fat liberation concepts previously and I poo-pooed them. I don't know. Sometimes it's not the right time, it's not the right situation, it's not the right place. And so I think, whatever people are doing, if they're dieting, if they're on GLPs or whatever they're doing, if they feel like, it doesn't matter what I think about what they're doing. If they that's working for them, then I think, well, great. If someone is committed to dieting and they're like, this is great for me. Cool. I'm so pleased that you have something that feels good for you. Because if I said at that moment, you're wrong, you don't know how wrong you are, you should listen to me. What are the chances that they, one day, well, even right in that moment, they're going to be like, thank you, Vinny, you are so wise and amazing. Or is it going to push them further into that? And what are the chances that they're going to come to me or someone like me when they are maybe more ready, when they had an experience where I was being self-righteous, pushy, and yeah. So I just now it's kind of I just accept some people are not into this, and that's okay. And I'm not going to be angry about it because they're living in the world and trying to survive just as much as I am. So yeah, that was a big learning lesson for me. Some people just are not into this stuff. Yeah, I really thought that. I thought I was like, I don't know, like Jesus or something. Hear the word. People were like, "Wow, Vinny, you've saved my life." Oh, yeah. Okay, number 10, final one. The lessons I've learned is we are isolated by our shame. And we don't realize that most of us have the exact same fears and issues. I did not know. Like I said at the beginning, I was so isolated with shame. I just thought I was so unique in my experience that no one else would know what I was going through. Like my big thing that I felt shame around was outside of being fat was having saggy tits. And it was such a shameful thing for me to like, and the reason is that, well, we all know, we live in a society where only certain types of tits are, on the TV, and actors who have saggy tits are going to be like, nah, I'm not really into the whole show my tits on TV thing. We're seeing a certain type of breast in the world. One time, by the way, side note, someone messaged me and said, I don't like that you say the word tits, so you should stop saying tits. No, I like the word tits. It's a British thing. I think it's a good word. Anyway. So, my tits sprang out of my chest when I started growing them, and they sprang out like two sausages, right? Like just cylinders going down. And that's just what happened. That's just how my tits are. And then my first boyfriend said to me, why do you look like that? What's wrong with your chest? Like, basically, like, you're deformed. By the way, my tits are fucking great. They are sexy as hell. And, you know, and this is the guy that I dated at the time. I was 17. He was 30. Creep alert! He was abusive, horrible. I did a whole, I think two-part podcast on him, many episodes ago. He abused me in every way that you could. And so, but this him being like, oh, it makes me so sick. This creepy 30-year-old guy dating me. This is my first boyfriend. And then saying to me, what's wrong with your body? Can you believe this motherfucker? And I was like, yeah, you're right. But I think even at the time I was like, oh, that wasn't very nice. Like, and being so vulnerable. I was homeless at the time. And my mum had left the country. I was alone. And then I had this adult man telling me that my teenager body was unattractive, deformed, flawed. It makes me so mad. And so I think even if that hadn't happened, I would have brought that with me. But yeah, I'd always be like, oh my God, this big shame of having saggy tits. And, you know, men would be like, oh, you got big tits. And I'd be like, oh yeah. But then I'd think, oh yeah, but if you saw them without my bra on, then you'd be like, oh, gross. They weren't. Tits are great, whether if they're long or if they're round or if they're little or if they're huge or, you know. And you know what's great about saggy tits is that like they like hang down like kind of pendulums, right? And then you can go onto a body and like dip them onto someone's chest or back or whatever. That's really fucking cool. And you can go bang, 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 waving them around. And you know, you see people on TikTok doing dances with their saggy tits all going around in their t-shirt like wild. Saggy tits are great. Anyway, so, but I don't know why the fuck I thought this, but I thought that I was the only one. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's so many of these things are not logical. Like, I was the only one. Because I thought, do you know what I thought? Is that no one had saggy tits until they were older and they had children. I think that's what my theory was. Yeah, so that's what my theory was that I was a young person and therefore my tits shouldn't be saggy. I didn't know that this is my theory. My theory is that most people have saggy tits. That's my theory. Sprouting out saggy. I think I want to get some data on this. I think the majority of people have saggy tits. Now, I haven't seen enough tits to be able to tell you, you know, in my lesbian dating experience. I mean, 10 years, I'll be able to tell you the reality. But because we're not seeing these, you know, the average tits, you know, growing up with Page 3 in the UK, Page 3 for people who are not from the UK was on newspapers, the third page in, so not the cover page, but, you know, the page over, 1, 2, yeah, with, you know, the third page, Page 3, always have a topless person there. How many of those would have saggy tits? Probably none, right? So really my view on what was a normal body was completely skewed. And also thinking that saggy tits were somehow inferior. I also have another theory that they have an evolutionary benefit. I have a theory that saggy tits are better for feeding babies. This is totally, I don't have children, so I've never breastfed. Well, yeah, I was going to say obviously because I don't have kids, but, you know, who knows? I might have just decided to breastfeed a goat or something. But, you know, and so, because, you know, the baby's there, and then, like, if you have a saggy tit, then you can just put your, you know, shove your tit in the baby's face. Whereas if your nipples are high up, because you don't have saggy tits, you're probably having to hold the baby higher, right? And that's going to hurt your arms. That's my theory. I might be completely wrong about this. People who've breastfed or chest fed, you can tell me, Vinny, you're talking out your ass. But yeah, anyway, all of this to say is, I bet you, a lot of you listening will be like, oh my God, yeah, me too, Vinny. And because, running groups and stuff, I'm like, how are you feeling about these things? And people will say, I'm feeling ABC. And I'm like, how the fuck is it? Time and time and time and time again, our fears are universal. I'm too much. I'm not enough. Am I lovable? Are people judging me? People are judging me. Should I make myself smaller? Should I diminish myself to make them like me? I feel scared because I was vulnerable. I'm too scared to be vulnerable. I don't want to set boundaries because I'm worried that the person's going to shout at me and I will lose their relationship. I'm worried that I'm a failure. I'm worried that I'm a loser. I'm a piece of shit. That I'm a nerd, and I'm worried that I'm not doing things right, and that I should do ABC. Like this is like, this stuff is so universal. And we're not going to feel all of these things at all the same time. And maybe you don't feel any of those things, or you've never felt any of those things. But shame cannot survive the light. And if you're feeling isolated by the shame of this thing that you're keeping secret, a thing that I kept secret for years, that I was like, I can't let anybody find this out, is that I had a verruca on my foot. What's it called in a wart? Do you know, you get it in from the swimming pool. What percentage of people have them? Like a lot. But I was so ashamed, and I had it for years. I would be hiding my feet. I would not be taking my socks off. I was so fucking ashamed. Like having a verruca on my foot was, I don't know, like I was a secret murderer or something. Like I couldn't ever, I never let any partner find out that I had a verruca on the foot. The thing was fucking tiny. It eventually went away because sometimes they just go away. I'd had treatment for it and it wouldn't go away. I'm like, what the hell? Why was I so ashamed about that one thing? Like really, really. And, even, just saying, I've never told anyone this whole verruca thing because, it's been it's just whatever. It's just, but it's just, I feel like it's, these universal experiences that as soon as you talk about it, you're like, oh, okay. Oh, hang on. So many other people feel the same thing, and it might not be saggy tits or a verruca or a fat body, but it's something else that when you hear about it, you're like, what? What are you worried about that for? I don't care that you have saggy tits or a verruca or a fat body or that you speak in a way that's a bit strange, or that you have missing hair from here or whatever it is. But unless we speak it out to other people, it can be poisonous to us. So, that's my final lesson. We're isolated by shame. But we all, not all of us, many of us experience the exact same feelings. And the only way to overcome that shame is to bring it to the light, because shame cannot survive the light. And that's easier said than done, because that means being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is inherently scary. And a little tip of if you do want to share what you feel shameful about, doing it with someone that is safe. Because a lot of us might have had that experience of being vulnerable with someone and it not being reciprocated with care that it should be. Like me being 17 with a creepy guy who says that there's something wrong with me when there wasn't. I was being vulnerable and he did something really cruel with that vulnerability. So, which teaches us to hide our shame even more, right? But then when we find people who we can build safety with and share this stuff, it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. If you've not done it, I recommend, and who's really good for that stuff is a therapist, right? Because that's what they're trained for. Hopefully they're not going to be like, oh, you got a fucking verruca? Ugh, you're gross. Can you imagine? Oh. So anyway, sending you oodles of compassion and love, and here's to another 10 plus 12 years, whatever, of me doing this stuff. Do you know what? So I was doing a list of podcasts in this world, in this, fat liberation world. And I've done this a few times, list of podcasts. And so I had a list from a few years ago that was 117 long. So it might be like dietitians talking about diet culture stuff, but, all sorts of different things talking about this type of topic. Out of that list of 117, only 25% were still making podcasts. So this is just from a few years ago. I've been making this show since 2019. That's 7 years. So just a big pat on my back for being able to do it for so long. It's hard. It's hard doing a podcast because you have to be really consistent. You have to be really, what's the word? Disciplined, maybe, I guess. And I guess for me, I don't really care about things like, oh, how many people are listening or how many followers I have, that type of thing. So maybe that helps with me be doing it because I'm not seeing metrics as a sign of success, maybe, and others are. Maybe I'm not smart. Maybe all of those people who stopped doing it, they stopped doing it because they were like, oh, only X amount of people listen, so why am I still doing this? So I should stop because it's not worth the effort. I've never done that. I guess because, to be honest, when I look at I do look at my stats from time to time. I know that hundreds and thousands, not hundreds of thousands, hundreds and thousands of people each listen to each episode. So I know that it's not, I know it's not a waste of time. And I know people will say, oh, I listened to that episode. And I'm like, what? You listened to this episode? Yeah. So anyway, I don't know why I was going on that tangent. Oh yeah, me just saying I'm proud of myself. And if you enjoy this content, could you leave me a review? Oh, I'm going to be so happy if I see that there's a review out on one of the things. I'm gonna check. You don't have to listen. I'm not the boss of you. Okay, I'm not trying to be directive here. You do you if you want to, and if you're feeling extra. Oh, give some love to Vinny. You can do. You can go to Ko-fi and buy me a coffee. You can do like $1 or whatever, or not, whatever. You can do nothing. You can say, "Well, that was good," and then just go and have a nice poo or something. Whatever. Do you? Okay. I'd mentioned a number of posts or old episodes. I'm going to put those in the show notes, so you can, if you're like, I wanted to listen to that thing, that whatever, then you can do that. All right. Well, thank you for hanging out with me today. Remember, you were worthy. You always were. You always will be. Stay fierce, fatty. Goodbye.